G'day West Coast Eagles fans, welcome back to True Eagle. Today we're going to take a little break in the list management style of videos I've been doing with the draft coming up next week, and I'm going to react to the fixture that dropped today. So we have basically the full fixture for season 2026, and we're just going to talk about what that looks like for West Coast and whether or not we think it's a good or bad fixture, because one of the quirks of our great game is that it produces an uneven fixture, unlike pretty much every other professional sport you can think of. There's a little bit to talk about. I also want to work through the fixture game by game and figure out how many wins I think we're going to have next season. I did this exact exercise 12 months ago when the fixture dropped for 2025, and basically I give each game a percentage chance of whether we can win or not. And last year, according to that algorithm, I had us winning 5.5 games. It was very depressing to reflect on that and see that we just won the one game, of course, in comparison to 5.55, I think it was. So we're going to do something similar today. We will resume the draft programming. I think I'll get at least one more True Eagle video done before night one of the draft. As for True Footy, my other channel, we'll be live on Saturday with a live show. We're going to probably do that a little bit later, so keep an eye out for an announcement on that on Instagram or something like that. That'll probably be later in the morning Perth time. Then I won't be doing anything live for night one of the draft. Dylan is tied up with the live stream with the actual AFL channel, which is outstanding. We will be live on night two. But given that I'll just be watching the draft at home, I will be recording videos and reactions to that. So we'll still get into what the draft looks like, but for now, let's just talk about the fixture. So the things you sort of really consider, particularly from a West Coast point of view, is how much are we traveling, where are we traveling to, how often, how big are the trips, and obviously there's also certain grounds we kind of want to avoid. So I've sort of broken this analysis into two bits. First of all, the difficulty of the fixture based on the teams that we play twice, because we arbitrarily play 6 teams twice in the AFL, and obviously the difficulty of the double ups is one component, and then we'll also consider the travel as well. So interesting as well, I looked at a couple of different sites that ranked the difficulty for each team based on the fixture. And interestingly, Zero Hanger ranked West Coast to have the 6th most difficult fixture. I think this was largely based on who we played twice. Fox Footy ranked us as the 14th hardest or the 5th easiest fixture next year. But then also in an article that they actually fleshed out, they had us as one of the biggest losers from the fixture because of the difficulty of it. So that was strange, but we'll get into why that is. So we have 6 double-up games. One of them is against Fremantle, of course. That is a staple every season that doesn't have COVID in it. We double up against North and Richmond, which are pretty good results. They were the other 2 bottom 3 sides this year. We can't ask for too much more than that. We also double up against GWS and Collingwood and Port Adelaide. So that doesn't sound too bad, but when you consider that we double up against 3 top 6 sides last year, it's a little bit iffy, right? So we double up against Collingwood, who finished 4th, Fremantle finished 5th, GWS finished 6th. Now, you may think that, well, the basic framework for fixturing is that if you're in the bottom 6, you have a limited amount of double ups against the top 6. But the reason this has sort of fallen through the cracks is because it's after finals where you finish. So GWS and Fremantle won 16 games each, I think, in season 2025. Because they lost their first finals each, they also qualify as 7th to 12th teams. And I read interestingly as well, we play more finalists twice next year than GWS do, who won 16 games and of course have played a final. So it's pretty quirky results. One thing I will say about assessing the total quality or difficulty of a fixture is it's sort of compared against last year. And we know that the AFL ladder changes quite a lot. Not sure if I tip any of Collingwood, Fremantle, or GWS to really fall off the cliff next year. Obviously, Collingwood probably has some vulnerability over the medium term, but next year I think they're all probably going to be good teams, so we're a bit unlucky there. I won't get too emotional about the fixture, given we are where we are at. It would be nice to have more than one win, so we'll get into the rest of the components there. But overall, it seems like we've been shafted a little bit on who we play twice. Bearing in mind, there's an important consideration here as well. One thing we didn't get last year was, we did play a away game in Bunbury against North Melbourne. Basically, the benefit of that obviously was that, North get the money from the receipts of that game, the ticket receipts, We don't have to travel a bit. It's still not a home game for us. It was neutral. It wasn't a huge advantage playing it at Hands Oval as opposed to Optus Stadium. Mind you, I also think we're not good enough to really have a home ground advantage as it stands. But what's different this year is we actually play North at Optus twice. Once as an away game in round 2, and then another one in the middle of the year, which fits into this nice block of games where we don't leave Perth. So the travel is one component, but we also played our actual home ground in both of those games, which is good, and that needs to be factored into the difficulty of this fixture because we're playing one more game at Optus than we normally would. And, that's great in any season, let alone for a tired young team by the middle of the year. So specifically, including the round 12 Essendon game, West Coast will remain in WA for a 4-week stint. We have games against Port Adelaide, North Melbourne at Optus Stadium in rounds 13 and 14. And we also have a mid-season bye. So that block of games there, Essendon, Port Adelaide and North Melbourne is followed by the bye, which means we don't have to travel at all, which comes at a good time in the middle of the season. I think we had something similar last year, but like I said, it's even better now that North Melbourne has to play at Optus, and I actually didn't double check this, but I presume Fremantle's now playing in Bunbury, so that's probably something we'll alternate. For Victorian Eagles fans, and I've met a bunch since I've moved here, didn't realise there was so many, and I'm one of them, of course. There are 6 games in Melbourne, so that's a great result. We have 2 MCG games, which I think there was only one last year against Richmond. We now play Collingwood and Richmond there in season 2026. I've not been to an Eagles game in Melbourne since the 2018 Grand Final. I didn't get to one while I lived here. That was really just a scheduling issue as much as anything else. It never aligned with when I was able to do it, and I'm busy with content, but I will get to one of those games, absolutely. Pleasingly, we don't have a trip to the Gabba this year. We do have a trip to People's First Stadium. So at least we avoid the double-up Queensland trip, which happens. We don't go to Tassie as well, unless I've missed that. We don't go to GMHBA. So one little nice piece of luck there, I suppose. And I wonder if West Coast has actually requested this, because the last 3 gather rounds, we've played Geelong, Sydney, and now Geelong again. And those are away games, I think they count for us. They are neutral, but the alternative is we go to GMHBA or we go to the SCG. So I wonder if that's something we specifically asked for. It's smart if we did. So not having to travel to Geelong is a nice little win here, because we know that those games tend to end really badly and have done for some time. 1 trip each to New South Wales and Queensland, and we have 2 trips to Adelaide, which is nice considering that's obviously the shortest trip from our point of view. And the Sir Doug Nicholls rounds, GWS and Collingwood in the middle of the year, so those are the teams we'll be wearing our Indigenous jumper against. We probably will slip in another game, there's usually more than 2 I would have thought, where we wear our Indigenous jumper. Alright, let's talk about how many wins we see coming in season 2026. Definitely overshot it in season 2025. I don't know if I'd said 5 if you'd asked me, I can't really remember. But the algorithm I had, if you want to even call it that, produced 5.55. Let's see how we'll go this year. So how it works is I give us a score out of 1, basically, of our chances to win. So against the Gold Coast Suns at People's First Stadium in round 1, I'm going to give us the lowest possible chance, which is 0.1, which is about 10% chance of winning. So we're in theory a chance of winning any game, but we'll just accumulate 0.1s in the games I don't think we're a realistic shot at, and I would be absolutely bamboozled if we even took it up to Gold Coast in round 1, to be honest with you. Then we have our home game against North. Gave us a 40% chance of winning that. We have failed to beat North at Optus Stadium at least the last 2 attempts. And I do expect they're probably more likely to improve than us this year. But still at home, 40% chance if we don't have certain key players out like we did for so much of this year. Port Adelaide at Adelaide Oval, 0.2. I remember we played quite well against them, really took it up to them last year at this venue. And look, I don't think they're that bad, Port Adelaide, so I'll give us a slight, sneaky chance of an upset there. So 0.2, a 20% chance, which might even be generous, to be honest. Sydney at Optus, can't see us winning that, although we did take it up to them at the end of last year, this year rather. Yeah, I still don't think so when they presumably will have a much healthier list, and Charlie Curnow as well. 0.1 against Geelong, probably 0.1 in the Derby. I can't imagine where it's going to be too much of a threat to Fremantle, but I would have said that in 2024 as well, and we killed them. So I'll always hold out hope, but let's be realistic here. St Kilda at Marvel, I don't necessarily expect them to be a really strong team next year, but I'd be pretty shocked if we win that. We did beat them in Perth, but I think the last time we played them at Marvel, they beat us by 12 goals. So that was 2024 as well. Richmond at Optus, given how badly that went last year, I still can't imagine us being better than Richmond next year, so I've capped that at 40%. We got absolutely embarrassed in that game. And hopefully, we're a chance because we beat them the year before that. But overall, I think that's a fairly okay read on the game. I'd imagine we start underdogs as it currently stands. Melbourne at Marvel, they got a few players out. If Max Gawn plays, we're going to get slaughtered. That's pretty much the only thing it takes to beat us when you're Melbourne because, he's such a dominant player and he had such a prolific effect. So even without Petrarca and Oliver and whoever else, I'd be pretty surprised if we beat Melbourne. I think they beat us by 83 last time we played them at Marvel. So I might even be generous there. The Giants at Optus, probably not going to win that. Collingwood at the G. We played well against them last year, but still, I can't imagine us ever toppling them anytime soon. Essendon at Optus, we only lost that game by 2 points last year. I am not one of those people that thinks Essendon's going to... Actually, I think they're a lock to finish higher than they did last year, given their injury crisis. But we did nearly beat them once. We could do it again. Put Adelaide at Optus, again 0.2. North at Optus again, a double up. I don't know if we've ever done this before. Played the same team in the same venue in the same season, other than obviously finals. That doesn't count. This must be a first. 40% chance, we'll leave it at that. That will be our away game against them. Carlton never goes well. Don't even care where they finish. They'll belt us. Adelaide at Optus. Obviously, we played well against them last year, but they're a good team, so you have to say 0.1. The Bulldogs at Marvel. Again, we did it a couple of years ago, but, that was a real flash in the pan, that one. Brisbane at Optus, Oscar Allen's homecoming, don't really care, 0.1. Fremantle at Optus again, 0.1. And then we have Richmond at the G at 0.3. Interestingly here, I've given the probability higher that we'll win at home. But we genuinely nearly beat them at the G this year, and then they slaughtered us in the second game in Perth. So don't know what to expect there. Overall, gives us a 35% chance between the two games of a win against Richmond. Then we finished the season with 3 really tough games. So that Richmond game might be our last chance of a victory, at least looking this far out. Collingwood at Optus, GWS at NG, and then Hawthorn at Optus. You know what I think about when I see Hawthorn at Optus in the final game of the season? I think of that shithouse finish to 2019. I'm still not quite over that. That's weird, hey? That really hurt. That really hurt walking down the steps at Optus Stadium that night. So that burns me. We've played them at Optus since, but that's the one I think of. But overall, that gave us a sum of 4.2 wins, so about 4 wins. That's a pretty big jump from last year, but I think the reality is when you look at the fixture last year and the way we played, had we saved our best performances, which all came against the top 4, we led in half time, and I think in all of those top 4 clashes, some of them at 3/4 time, or at least, we were really close against Geelong deep in the third, I reckon. Had we saved those performances for the bottom teams, we would have more wins without necessarily being a better team. And of course, we happened to play some of our worst footy against Richmond and North Melbourne in particular, and Melbourne or Essendon also finished in the bottom 4. I suppose we did get close to Essendon, but overall, that was pretty much the difference between us having 1 win and a couple of more without really changing the script on how good we are. So I don't think it's crazy that we could win 4 games, and if anything, I'm pretty negative in this assessment. I'll go into every game hoping for the best, but I think 4 wins is a realistic hope. I'd say realistic hope, not an expectation, but it's a realistic hope of what we can achieve next year. So anyway, guys, that is my take on the fixture. Overall, not too much to sink your teeth into because we're going to be a rebuilding side again for the next couple, you'd think. So we're just looking for our opportunities to win. I would say that there's 2 double ups against Richmond and North Melbourne, and the D's at Marvel and Essendon at Optus are some other games that on paper look winnable, but we know it doesn't necessarily work like that. We could jag a win against a really good side somewhere. We were nowhere near as good as St Kilda last year, and that was the only game we won. So let me know in the comments what you think. Happy with the travel element, a bit rough on the double ups, but overall not too bad, and glad we're getting another game at Optus against North Melbourne. So let me know in the comments what you think. I'll see you in the next one. Up the Eagles.